Well, first, I wanted to start off tonight by congratulating the national UK organization, British Naturism. They just recently broke the record for the amount of the most nudes in a roller coaster at one time.
That's fantastic.
Isn't it? You know, that's a hell of an accomplishment there. They got 195 nudists into a roller coaster at the Blackpool Pleasure Beach amusement park in Blackpool, England.
That's great. It never ceases to amaze me, right? The things, not so much that oh my God, this many naked people. No, I don't give a shit about that. That's great. That's wonderful, right? But who at one point said, you know what's not in the fucking Guinness Book of World Records? Roller coasting nude.
Yeah.
Like, who was that trailblazer that set us down this glorious path?
You got to think about all the things that can go wrong fucking with your shit flapping in the breeze in a fucking roller coaster.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what if the person next to you gets a little scared and fucking grabs onto the wrong thing?
The wrong handlebar?
You know what I mean? Besides the shit, the shit is flopping around everywhere.
There should be a Guinness book for just the nudes. Like, everything that the Guinness book has, but then you have the nude version. So
Guinness
there's
of nude records.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, but then, it gets into disturbing territory, though, because then you have to break it up into nude men events and nude women's events, and although maybe not in this age of inclusiveness.
Excuse me, I identify whatever I want when I'm nude, okay?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Don't you put a box on me or in me, or I don't even know.
Yeah, and then somebody could take a look at you in the book, and they would know the truth anyway, no matter what you identify with.
Or would they?
Love me, daddy.
So it's fitting that the first thing we would talk about was the nudists in England, because we're running some ad campaigns, and interestingly enough, and it has to be because of the way that I've put that on there. Everybody that's looked at our show so far is from the UK. Not a single American. They're all from. Well, there's been a couple Canadians, so I don't want to leave them out. But there are a couple of Canadians. But it actually makes sense, though. It makes sense to me. I put on the ad, right? I put on the ad. It's like a dive bar conversation. So come grab a beer with us. That's what I put up there. And most of my life, my best drinking buddies were always English.
Okay.
So it makes sense.
The English and the Irish, they know how to drink.
Yeah, well, I've gotten drunk with many Irishmen.
I think perhaps maybe they just want to hear some Queen's accents, something to make fun of.
Yeah, right.
It could be. You never know. Or maybe they're tuning in for all the Scottish dog fucking.
Yes. I do have a surprising amount of bestiality on the show.
That's one thing, Thaddeus, that we did miss you on the 50th, because we were talking about like the direction we want to go with the show and stuff like that, and talk about some of our favorite ones.
Okay.
And I really definitely wanted you on there for your favorite ones. Your favorite past episodes. Yeah, because we brought up the Scottish dog fucking last week.
Nice. Yeah, I hated that I fucking missed the 50th. But
so you were going to tell me a funny story about these campaigns before.
Oh, so I don't know how funny it is, but funny that you mention it, right? Because when TMC the show started, now I didn't run like these ad campaigns, so I didn't have like numbers or whatever. But in getting feedback from people that did listen, and whatnot, so that word of mouth, friends, and friends and family in the U.S. here, but predominantly when I would look at the numbers, the listeners to the podcast were outside of the United States. We had a decent following in, like you said, there was a few in Canada, a decent amount in UK. There was even like a couple like Australia and something else, not New Zealand, but something else like out there.
Yeah, you know what I bet it has to do with?
What's that?
I mean, content in the show, it's kind of some crazy shit. But I think it has to do with Americans are full of shit.
To some degree, that's true. I'm not, how do you see it parlaying here, though?
See, the way that I'm looking at it is that the especially like England, Scotland, Ireland, you know, they're going to tell you straight out what they think, and fuck you if you don't like it. You could eat a dick, you know.
Probably yes.
And when you do a show that's kind of the same thing, kind of same attitude, and you put it out there like that, hey, look, we're just hanging out, fucking bullshitting, you know, grab a beer, hang out,
talk.
we're gonna say what we're gonna say, right? You know, we're gonna fuck around, tell some jokes, you know, insult you a little bit. You don't like it, fuck off. And I think people from other parts appreciate that a lot more, at least more than Americans recently, which is weird because the whole thing about being American is telling people to fuck themselves.
Yes.
You know, this country is built on people telling everyone else to fuck off, and now all of a sudden they're kissing everyone's ass. It's so bizarre, but you know, not to get political.
No, I love how you always say that. But also too, there's some truths in the world that don't need a political spin on them. You know what I mean? We as a country, right? Think about just go back to like your grandparents' generation, right? Like I remember leaving, and I'm sure you guys were right. You living in Queens too. There were days you didn't leave you left the front door unlocked. Like, you know, like there were neighborhoods and people and you know, that has just changed. So, you know,
that's definitely true.
Not necessarily a political spin on it, but a demographical and ideological change. We've evolved for better or worse. You know, things.
It's definitely true. There are things you used to be able to do that you just can't do anymore because you know it's not going to turn out right.
Yeah, and that's not even saying like the right and wrong of like, oh, a show like The Jeffersons or All in the Family couldn't be made today. You know, like these are things that like just overall the driving, right? People driving. People don't stop at fucking stop signs anymore. You know, they're blasting through fucking reds when the other side's already green. Like there's a I don't want to say a disrespect, but a lack of respect.
There's a general breakdown in the common decencies of society. Is what it is.
Yeah,
and I was talking about this with my wife the other day. There are entire police theories that you know say that if you fucking enforce people pissing in the corner, you're going to stop violent crime because you know if you can't even get away with pissing in the corner, you're not even going to think about killing somebody. You know, there's a lot to that, especially like you said. I see crazy shit like Florida down here is fucking nuts. The things that people do are crazy. So it's like insane. Like it's all illegal. Everything they do. It's like you know.
So basically, if correct me if I'm wrong. What you're saying is that pissing could be like a gateway crime to like other crimes.
Gateway drug.
Yeah, it's not so much that the pissing is the gateway crime, right? It's like because you're not going to. Being somebody who pisses on the corner is not the same thing as somebody who's going to murder someone. That's you know, but
I mean, if I could piss in the corner, I mean, I guess I could kill somebody too.
but the thing is, if the areas where you're able to get away with pissing in the corner, you're also probably able to get away breaking into a fucking building,
right?
And if you're able to get away with breaking into a building, you're probably able to get away with fucking killing somebody in there,
dominoes or whatever.
Exactly. So that's exactly it.
Sure,
But in the neighborhood that you can't get away with pissing on the building, you're not even going to try to break in because somebody's going to notice you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know. So and it's the same thing with the general breakdowns of society. Like when one of my biggest things that drives me nuts. It's a weird thing because the only thing that gets society keeps everything together is that we all agree on what we're supposed to be doing. Right. What's the most frustrating thing about kids, Thaddeus? They don't want to listen to you.
Yeah.
And you can't explain to them why they have to listen to you.
Yeah.
And they're like
when they're young.
Yeah. Right. When they're young and they're like a muscle and they start screaming, because they want what they want and fuck you, they're going to do what they want. Right. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not going to bed. And then you got to fight with them for an hour after, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, how is that any different than the dude that walks down the middle of the street with his pants hanging around his ass while fucking 4 cars are piling behind him because they can't get around him because he's walking down the middle of the fucking street?
Yeah.
Right? So when everybody starts doing that, now you have a fucking problem. Now you have a break in society.
Yeah.
Because nobody agrees on the rules and they don't want to fucking do the common decent things. And you know, that's why you have a lot of that.
Yeah. The other unfortunate trickle down effect of like some of this stuff too is not even just the like the crime aspect, right? Trickle down effect or dominoes, whatever, you know, analogy you prefer. Right? So more and more people are seeing more and more people not giving a fuck and getting away with bullshit.
So they're like, why should I?
And they sit there and they say, well, if he can fucking do it, why can't I? If she can fucking do it, why can't I? So they start doing it. And then the next, you know, bubble of people or you know, like loop in the hyperbola or whatever the fuck that thing was called, right? Venn diagrams, you know, these things start expanding and it's like more people just stop giving a fuck.
I wonder if that's exactly what it is, that whole thing that empires rot from within. I wonder if that's exactly what it is. The people get complete when you're building up the empire, right? People are all like they're hungry, they're struggling through it, they're making it happen. And then you get to a certain point where there's no struggle anymore. And it's done, it's made. And then everybody starts acting like a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And they're filming it.
Yeah. Now obviously I am certainly not pro-war. It's a funny thing, like when you look at it in a dynastic standpoint, right? Rome, the fucking Greeks, whatever group, whatever time, whatever, right? That hunger, the building the empire, right? The hunger, the build, the conquer, the whatever, and then there's no more war and there's peace. Finally, there's peace. Well, what the fuck do we do now? I don't know. Should we start fucking with each other, I guess? Yeah, sure. Why not? And it fucking degrades. And then fucking another civilization is like, no, you can't do that. We have the answer. And the fucking same thing happens. No more war, peace, blah.
That's
the complacency set.
It's the everyday asshole that ruins the fucking empires. It's the everyday little fucking you little motherfucker.
One bad apple
shit
spoils the whole bunch.
Well, that's again, we talked about that probably fucking 3 weeks in a row. How fucking there's no such thing as lifting people up. People take you down. It's the other way around.
Fortunately, yeah, it's predominant, and that's one of the things, you know, especially when the group of us when we first started the show, some of the conversation or whatever, like this is part of, at least from my aspect of this, is part of what I enjoy doing about this. Doing these podcasts or whatever creative outlet it is, right? And getting like-minded people together and trying to produce something. And you know what? If we do this, let's say, and we get a little bit of notoriety, right? And then one person sees Walt's video and he's like, holy shit, this man's amazing. I got to tell all my friends. And fucking Walt blows up. That would make me happy. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, look at this fucking asshole. Hey,
now we know
had a fucking podcast, you know.
Now we know what he was jerking off to when he had the volume down.
I'm not denying Walt was a very sensual man.
Oh,
but yeah, but that part of all this for me is that concept of working together with like-minded people, creating. Even though I know we shit talk a lot on this podcast, but but in general, we try and provide this like positive headspace for ourselves and anybody that wants to be in it, right? And again, pushing people and bringing in people and hoping that somebody succeeds and hoping that we all succeed and shit like that, right? That's the fucking dream right there. And if that means I need to fucking stop at a stop sign instead of fucking roll through it, then I fucking stop at a stop sign.
Huh.
Right?
Interesting. I mean, I guess. I mean, the only reason... look, I always tend to look at things like this because I try to be pragmatic. It doesn't matter what theories you have. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You got to be pragmatic. Right?
Sure.
If you know that people are after you, don't give them a reason to take you down.
Yep.
if you have certain things you want to get done, do the things you need to do to get those things done without letting some other asshole take you down.
Yeah.
Put yourself in the position to succeed. That's it. You know, it doesn't mean you're going to, but it's definitely not going to happen if you don't. And that's just how I try to look at it. But I have an advantage that I look at things systemically. I look at things. It's funny because it's what I'm going to school for, but I've always been like this. I look things cybernetically. In terms of systems, how does everything work together? How each one of us is is a unit of a machine, and how do I work to make that machine work?
Yes.
You know, and I look at everything like that. It's fucking
and potentially, how do I make it work even better?
But yes, and that's ultimately, you know, which, you know, with the creative aspects of everything that we're talking about, what really got me doing all this, is that I always wanted to make movies. Other than, you know, playing ball, I want to make movies. I love movies. Love them. I used to go to see everything. I don't do it so much anymore. We missed the Oscars because, you know, we were doing other things. I don't really watch them anymore because which is a shame because I love movies.
Yeah.
Because all the political stuff has gotten to the point where it's just, you know,
every speech is about an agenda.
Yeah, you know, and that's like I go into and the books that I write, and you know, this podcast a little bit more. It's a little bit more in the world, but I write the stories that I write so I could forget about the world, so I could take my mind off the world, and I bill it that way. You know, I write popcorn for people that just want to take their mind off all the bullshit they had to deal with all day, right? To me, that's what movies are supposed to be. Like, my favorite thing ever is going to the movies because for 2 hours you can forget the world. But now all of a sudden it's not escapism anymore. I can't forget the world anymore. Right? Did you guys watch the Oscars, this one at all?
No.
And it's even funny that you bring that up too. Is one of the things we used to love to do as part of TMC the show also, but just in general in our private lives is. We would get together and we would actually bet on the Oscars. We'd get a printout of whatever, and let's say, okay, $20 for the night, and then we'd figure like, all right, you know, $1 for this, $1 for that, 25 cents for this, 25 cents for that, and we'd all do it, and we'd watch, and we had a time, and it was like a party. And I can't do that anymore. I feel
you definitely can't do it.
Fun.
It's right. I mean,
it's supposed to be a celebration and a hey. You did a fucking phenomenal job. You're amazing. Well, it's true. I am amazing. And the way you should think is this, because I have a 30-minute speech dictating what you should do with your life.
Yeah, people Thanks.
That I'm not betting on you anymore.
Yeah, it's not good. But I mean, this year all the nominees were all political. Everything that was nominated was political in nature.
Yeah.
And although, did you guys see Bohemian Rhapsody?
No, unfortunately, I haven't seen much movies at all lately.
I saw Bohemian Rhapsody.
What'd you think, Walt?
Of the movie?
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. I saw it in an IMAX theater, and it was great because Queen's music is awesome. So I had the IMAX theater had all the speakers around and everything, and like it was a great surround sound, and it was just a really, really cool experience. Now, having said that, I because I was a Queen fan going in, I knew a lot about the band, and I knew that certain things were out of sequence when they explained it. And I know, like, it's hard to take 20 years and edit it into 2 hours, into a 2-hour film. But, as a Queen fan, you know certain things. You know that We Will Rock You was not written in 1981. It was written in 1977. It was written and recorded in 1970. These are things that you just know as a Queen fan. And they took that for granted a little bit and maybe tried to appeal to more of the masses, and it was like, the real Queen fans be damned, it was that kind of thing. So
I'm listening to this, right? And I like Queen a lot. I know all this shit, right? But you are like you're like a Rain Man when it comes to like bands and all the things that they went through. Like this dude knows like you name a band, he'll tell you some crazy shit about them, right?
He is a music savant.
He he knows his shit, right?
Yeah.
But he makes a mistake that a lot of people make, that he thinks because he does it that everyone else is like that. And I can guarantee you most Queen fans do not know all that shit about Queen.
Right.
No,
I know it's just me. I know I'm the crazy one, but
especially
there's people like you, but it's just the like you said, the appealing to the masses is like.
I mean, and that's kind of the point that the movie was trying to make, is that that's what they were trying to do, and like the band was instrumental in making this movie. So they were advisors through the whole thing,
right?
So and the dude who won the best picture, and he deserved to win the best picture because he was awesome.
Oh, like
he really was, yeah.
Remy was great, or whatever, right?
I thought it was great. I went out and, because I don't know how, all my Queen CDs were burned off of other fucking people's CDs, and it won't play in my car. So I actually had to buy a fucking Queen box set to listen to them driving to Disney, because I don't like the I'd rather have the CDs in there. It sounds better. It's just I like it.
It's worth it, yeah.
It's worth it to me to have the actual CD rather than do the shit on the phone. They are a band that. There are certain bands that are huge in your life at certain points. Like for me, AC/DC was the first band that I ever got into, right, in junior high. They're like the first band that I liked. And then it was in high school, it was Rush. Like I was a huge Rush fan, Then just after college, it was Bruce Springsteen for a long time, and then Fish later, right? Big, like kind of like your dog. You get your dog, and you've had your dog for fucking 10 years. And you get from one stage of life to the other. You have bands that are big at those moments, right? But then you have bands that are just always around, that are just part of the tapestry of your life. They are part of the background soundtrack that you don't even realize that are there, that like mean so much to you in your life because they're always there. And you never even realized how much of a part of it they were. Tom Petty, Queen, the Beatles, but everybody knows the Beatles is there, but the Beatles, that kind of shit. The Queen is one of those bands. You don't realize, like, how many the Iron Eagle they did that soundtrack. The Highlander, they did that soundtrack. It's actually both in the same album. Flash Gordon, they did that. We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions is the greatest greatest sports anthem ever.
Yeah.
They're great, and they're in everything.
Absolutely.
Ice Ice Baby, for fuck's sake.
Excuse me.
So to me, that movie captured that, and that's why it was an awesome movie. Now the historically accurate parts of it, okay, yeah. That for the real fans, that's probably gonna piss you off.
I think what they did really well, talking about accuracy, was the Live Aid portion of it.
That was great.
At the end, yeah. And if there's a YouTube clip of somebody took the actual Live Aid and lined it up with the movie version of Live Aid, and it was really cool the way they did it, because it looks almost like it's the same performance.
That's great.
Yeah,
I love when movies based on reality do that kind of stuff. And like really not just tell the story of, but try and recreate at least portions of them,
It's funny. I think I was 9 when they did that. And I think I remember, did they have that on TV for everybody to watch it?
It was on TV. I don't know that it was live, but it was on TV.
It was on TV. I think I remember. I'm pretty sure I remember watching that.
And what a lot of people don't know is that they came back later on that night and did an encore. They did a 1-song encore. They played "Love of My Life," if I'm not mistaken. So they actually did that performance, and then actually came back with just an acoustic guitar. So it was, I do think it was. I don't remember it that well. I remember when it was happening, but like you said, we were 9 years old, and it was kind of hard to remember if it was exactly live or if it was maybe taped or something. It could have very well have been taped. I know when they did. Do you guys remember the Wembley show that they did after Freddie died? They had a whole bunch of bands get together, and it was like
I do remember that too.
Yeah, they all took turns singing. Whatchamacallit? I do vaguely remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I think even Axl was there. I think Axl was there, and they had just a bunch of bands on. And the funny thing about that is they had taped the show, and then the MTV showed it. I don't remember exactly when, but sometime in 1992. But I do remember that it was taped. So then I don't know if they had done the same thing with Live Aid, but it's something that we should look up and see if
that's. I wanted to for this show. I want to do more things like that. I want to do more things like profiles on. Okay, this actor, this actor did with this movie, that movie, and shit like that. Mm-hmm. Bands are another one that I want. Did you know that this should happen? I want to do more stuff like that. That's interesting stuff. I was glad that the kid won the Academy Award. I thought he deserved.
Sure.
Yeah. I can't imagine that anybody else had a better performance, but it was definitely a political thing. Now, there's certain things that I was happy about that. For instance, Black Panther was nominated for Best Picture. It won 2 Academy Awards. Now, part of it is because it was only political. That's the reason why he did it, right? But part of me is happy about that because I think the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is the greatest thing that's happened in entertainment ever. I think it's the best shit that has ever been done in movies. Regardless of you want to say about the different stories.
Bigger than Disney as a whole?
Yeah, because 22 movies that are different, all enclosed movies that all are
definitely better cinematic, whatever, but bigger.
It's a tapestry. It's Harry Potter on steroids.
Sure. And don't get me wrong, I love it. But I think Disney has the lock on the whole biggest card. But
amazing. And it's funny that you say that though, and I was just at Disney this weekend. It's funny that you say that because I think that in all of entertainment, Disney World, the entire Disney organization,
as a brand,
as what Walt Disney did, is the greatest thing ever. To me, that's the best thing that's ever been done. But as far as movies go, and in that realm, there's nothing like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. 22 different movies, all enclosed, one-shot stories.
Well, how many does Disney have though? With all the Snow Whites and
but they don't interconnect.
No, they don't. I agree with you on how wonderful the MCU is, and I think they by far have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that they own the movie industry as far as like comic book movie, kinds of things are concerned. Like DC as great as like the Batman franchise is and all that kind of stuff, DC cannot hold a candle to what Marvel's been able to do in the movies.
Nothing can. There's no there's no franchise that is what this is. It's sick what it is.
And now so maybe also too we're looking at the different sides of the same coin, or however you want to look at it. Now when you say biggest, do you mean biggest as in most, like you were saying, like the intertwined, the number of movies, the overall picture and focus of the thing, and that's your definition of big? Or
yes,
see, when I say something is the biggest, right?
Okay, now don't forget, you got to keep this in mind. You got to keep this in mind, though. Disney now owns both Marvel and Star Wars.
Sure.
So if we're talking, we're talking about different realms. We're talking about Galactus to the Fantastic Four. You know what I mean? We're talking about different things.
Sure. And I'm not even counting Star Wars and MCU in Disney. I'm simply talking about like growing up Disney, right? All the Snow Whites and the Cinderellas and all those movies, right? then moving forward with doing and going into the next generation of things, right? And then Little Mermaid and all the new ones that are still coming out, and how they're still producing all these, you know, for the most part, kids movies, right? And all that kind of stuff. To me, biggest, like iconic, like that kind of thing. I think Disney still has that, just for the amount of movies that they put out and how early in the industry they were doing the things they were doing.
Disney also has a shit ton out that's just total crap, and they also have a shit ton out that's just pure. Like I was looking the other day, they came out with this.
And if you're talking about like quality to quantity ratio, I think MCU has Disney beat there.
What I'm specifically talking about is in a story writing enterprise. You know, like a creative,
focus,
created universe.
That's right, like that huge, but still having the overall focus. Yeah, no, I agree with that then.
Right, sure. because the reason why I don't put Disney in that category again. Now, if you're talking about Walt Disney Resorts, the real estate portion of it, if you're talking about the amusement park portion of it, and the all-inclusive everything that they have as part of their label,
just movies alone, because right. Don't forget too, as great as everything is, the MCU is not doing that much innovative in the movie field, whereas Disney, when they were doing that stuff,
in that sense, Disney again is the greatest thing ever, because Walt Disney. I mean, to me, Walt Disney is the king. You know, like
but I agree. If you're talking about let's say a franchise or a brand that
a story universe,
yes, that is focused and because Disney doesn't tie in. Like, sure, there's some tie in with their stuff, and they do shit where all the princesses are in the same goofy show or
right, but whatever. It's not the same.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The other thing is that all of their stories, all their good classic stories, are ripped off. They're directly taken from like famous stories that have been around for hundreds of years. Sure. So it's not, they didn't come up with original content. The original part of what they've done with all of them was the animation parts and the technology that they had to create in order to pull off the animation.
Yes.
Some of the stuff they're doing is crazy.
So similar to like when people are talking best franchises overall, right? One of my arguments always with Star Wars as a franchise, as an entity, right, as a brand, if you're just talking like the quality of these 6 movies versus the quality of these 4 movies, or you know, all that kind of stuff, how much you enjoyed it, right? Because it's always like for us in our younger years, especially like before the MCU was even what it is today. But it was like, you know, like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Alien franchise, you know, like these were the big hitters, you know, and, you know, which one did you like best? Which one was the best or whatever, right? But when you're talking about Star Wars as an enterprise, no, I shouldn't say that, right? Because then the Star Trek people and Star Wars people each other.
Especially when Star Trek has had like 11 fucking movies or some shit like that.
Yes. But here's the other thing too. And not that I definitely don't hate Star Trek. I enjoyed Star Trek. I watched a lot of like The Next Generation, and I love the Shatner stuff. I just wasn't as into it when I was a kid. I watched it more in like reruns and shit like that, right? But just their movies were not as great overall, I think, especially individually.
And that's Star Wars.
Where
there's no Star Trek movies. As much as I like The Wrath of Khan, I love that movie. I like 6, The Undiscovered Country. Movie's great. 4, Voyage Home is great. As much as I like it's Search for Spock, you know, as much as those movies are great movies, there's nothing in that entire franchise that is 4, 5, or 6.
Correct.
Nothing.
I agree. Right. Yeah. And then you take franchise. You take Star Wars as an entity, right? And what Lucas created, much like what we were talking about before with Disney. Dude, he created his own technology in movie making so that he can do what he wanted to do. He created a fucking company, 2 different ones, and
if I'm not mistaken,
it's still the industry standard.
If I'm not mistaken, they did a lot of stuff like that for the first Avengers movie. They had a lot of blue screen, green screen stuff that they had to completely come up with it that they never did before for the Avengers movie.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, but obviously it's not the skill. That's obviously not the scale of Lucas, because like those Star Wars movies, the things they had to do was fucking insane that they had to pull
especially
off.
for that time.
Plus, the other thing is that and this is why Iron Man, the first Iron Man, is still probably Marvel's best movie, because there are other movies that are better stories, that are funnier, that are better action, right? But like Episode 4, like New Hope, it's the one that made everything else possible. Without A New Hope, none of the stuff that we're talking about is ever made. We're still fucking making love stories that are fucking without special effects. You know what I mean?
Before Iron Man, MCU, as we know it, didn't exist.
They tried a bunch of times, and all the movies kept sucking.
But even so, it was still them just putting out random movies, right? The Spider-Man franchise did all right, and there was a couple of movies here and there that were kind of like, yeah, those were pretty good. I enjoyed them,
but they're all cheesy.
Yeah, and there wasn't this overall scope of end game material,
right?
That is going to take you to the next stage.
And that's the thing, is where I think a lot of people miss on the individual movies, right? The individual movies aren't made to be better than Star Wars 4.
Yeah,
they're not made to be better than that. They are made to collectively, just like a comic book is. The single issue of fucking Thor is not great, but the 5 issues that tell the story, and those 5 issues together, makes it fucking awesome. And it's just like a TV show. When you're watching one individual episode, there's certain episodes in between that are bullshit, that suck. It's a lot of talking, no action, but you need them to set up the 3 episodes to come after.
Yep.
And that's
sometimes like when someone says like, "Oh, I went to see this movie. I mean, it was pretty good, but like the first hour dragged." It's like you have to set up a whole mind frame and mindset that people need to live in for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
And what are you supposed to do that in 5 minutes?
Right.
Like some movies you can, action movies and shit like that. Like, like Fast and Furious. You didn't need fucking 4 hours of, all right, so these are the characters and this is what they're going to go through and this is where we're going to end up and everything's going to be okay. Like, no, you
kind of need that.
You blast the car.
You kind of need that for the Marvel movies, though. For each character, you kind of need that a little bit of an origin.
And that's why individually the solo movies, people aren't.
I actually like Solo.
Yeah, I like them too. But
Solo suffered because of the other one, and this is going to be my point, and this is where I want to go with this.
Sure.
Solo suffered because they tried to force ideologies in a Star Wars movie with The Last Jedi. All the criticisms about The Last Jedi had to do with them trying to force demographics into the characters. They tried to force characters that had no business being in the story, and it was bad writing. I mean, there's so many plot holes. I still enjoyed it, honestly, because it's Star Wars, and I thought they did great with Luke Skywalker. A lot of people have loved Escape His Nature.
Okay.
Right? He died looking out to the stars, towards the horizon. Never mind his world where he was. That's how he died. But they tried to force shit, and then they alienated the fans. So they protested and didn't go to see Solo. And Solo suffered, and what happened? Now they canceled all the other movies. They're making the episode 9, but they're not making any of the other movies when they had all these movies slated. It did so poorly.
A lot of spin-offs and solo movies that
they're not going to make
like
now.
An Obi-Wan movie was rumored. There was a Yoda one supposedly in concept. There was another Boba Fett. Mm-hmm.
So that brings me to coming out this weekend, Captain Marvel. And there is a lot of controversy surrounding this movie
already.
Right? And because about 3 weeks ago, Brie Larson started running around talking about how she doesn't care what 40-year-old white dudes think. The problem is that that's like 80% of your demographic.
Yeah.
We discussed the last couple of weeks. We discussed about how important demographics were. We were having conversations about this off the thing, off of our show, about how important is what knowing your demographic is, because those are the people that are buying your product. And you can't afford to piss them off. No matter how big you are, you can't afford to piss them off, because look at Star Wars, right? So she starts running around saying this stuff, right? And now so far the critics reviewed, like Rotten Tomatoes had to change how they allow people to post reviews, because of the negativity she created.
Mm-hmm.
They went from projecting 160 million on opening weekend to like 80 million on opening weekend because a lot of fan backlash already. You can't alienate your biggest group, right? Now, so far, it has it's got an 84 rating on Rotten Tomatoes and like a 66 rating on Metacritic, but that's actually not that bad on Metacritic. So I was looking through this stuff, right? And with the critic ratings and stuff like that. Now, Black Panther was nominated for Best Picture, which is I'm happy about it because it was because it's a comic movie and it's breaking through for us. When I was a kid, you had to hide that you even liked comics, and now they're nominated for Academy Awards. Yeah. But it's also kind of bullshit because it's not even in the top 5 Marvel movies. It's not even the top 5 best Marvel movies.
Correct. A good movie, but
a good movie. Yeah, good movie. I think it's in their second tier, but not in their top, not in their A tier, right? So, but still good, but not like that. And the critics gave it a 97 rating. And you know why they're giving it a 97 rating. It's because it's political. And meanwhile, the fans gave it a 79 rating. I don't think it's quite that low, but
somewhere in the middle there.
And that's what I'm thinking is somewhere in the middle, right? So now when you read the it's somewhere in the middle, 97 to 79 puts 88. Puts an 88 rating if you would in the average rating for Rotten Tomatoes, and I think that's probably about right for Black Panther. It's probably about an 88 rating to me, right? If you went down to 85, okay, but if you went up to 90, I'll give it to you, but I would say 88, right? Now the Captain Marvel movie that's coming out right now, the critics have it as an 84 rating, right? But when you read the reviews, when you read what's actually written, it's all 3 out of 5 stars. The only ones the ones that give it high rate, and they all say the same thing. It's like an origin movie. It's like one of the Phase 1 Marvel movies, like Thor or Captain America, right? But when they give it a good rate, so it's as far as the movie goes, it's like a C movie. But when they start to get political, and you can read it, you can see when you're reading it exactly which ones are getting political and which ones aren't. Then all of a sudden that they go up into the higher levels. Then all of a sudden this movie's getting like a 95. It's good. The high ratings are all from people being completely political, and the people that are actually being honest about the movie are giving it like a C. So it's really like a 60 movie that they're giving it a high rating to when you read all the stuff. Now, Black Panther, I think the reason why I got a 79, I think the fans would have given it a higher rating, except that they got political. Enough people recognize that they were trying to push a political point, right? But they had interviews, and I believe this again, not to get political, but Jordan was Michael B. Jordan, right? Was giving interviews and saying, "Hey, look, just because it's okay to be proud to be black, but that doesn't mean that we don't like anybody else, or it's not okay for anybody else to be proud too. It's that doesn't mean it has to come at somebody else's expense, and that's a good positive message. I can get behind that, right?
Agreed.
And then, but there's a bunch of YouTube stations that were contrasting. They were showing that video and contrasting with Brie Larson. I don't care what 40-year-old white dudes think about this. It wasn't made for you. Now, she was talking about another movie, but that's her mindset. Yeah. And they've gone out of their way, the director, to say that this is specifically a feminist movie. So what I'm afraid of, right, is just like with Disney, with Star Wars, where because that movie sucks so bad, and they were so pissed off about it, that the backlash came against Solo, so Solo crashed, and they took everything off the slate. After Endgame, Captain Marvel's supposed to be a big part in the end of Avengers Endgame, and then after Endgame, she signed for 7 more movies. Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, they're all going to be phased out, and she's supposed to be the leader. So if you had that backlash, if they go out of their way to make it a feminist movie and people picking it up and the people giving it the good ratings is because of that and not because of the quality of the story, and it's just an average movie, right? I'm terrified of what these ratings can come out, what these fan ratings are going to come out, and I'm afraid it's going to bomb so bad that they're going to wipe the MCU off the map. On the other hand, though, I'm afraid that it's going to be bullshit. Like it's going to be like average, like movies that they're making more than what they are because of the political parts of it. And then they turn this whole franchise into that.
Yeah.
You know,
and that might be even worse.
And that might be even worse. So I don't know.
Yeah, because then instead of it going away, it's still there and you hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it turns it turns into ash in my mouth. Is what it does. You know what I mean? But it did give me an interesting thing, right? I was looking because I was wanting to compare what this was to all the other movies. You know, if Black Panther, if I think that's second tier, right? So Iron Man came out, right? I was looking at this thing. This is what when you guys logged in before. This was what I was doing. You have the critics ratings, and then you have the fan ratings, right? If you had to pick one or the other, I would go with the fan rating, right?
100%.
Yeah, especially in these particular movies, because critics, you can't trust them, right?
Especially because it was the early movie, so there wasn't a bandwagon to jump on.
Right. Yeah. Well, some of the early movies actually were helped by that, though, and I can't blame the critics in that. If you're saying the fifth origin story of the fifth character and it's the same derivative formula movie as the other four, after a while you're like, okay, guys, I've seen this.
Yeah, sure. But what I was saying, like the early ones, right? The early ones were not judged against other MCU movies. They were judged against like Gone with the Wind and fucking Titanic. So, early on they're like comic book movie. I mean, it was all right, but like that, like you said, trying to hide the notion of that. So
check this out though. Iron Man 1, right? The first Iron Man. It got a 93 critics rating and a 91 fan rating for a 92 average rating.
It's good.
I'd say that's probably about right. I'd say that's probably about true.
Yeah.
I'd say that's spot on. 92 is probably about right.
It definitely helped that Robert Downey Jr. attached himself to the project.
But don't forget, Robert Downey Jr., before that movie came out, he wasn't what we think Robert Downey Jr. now.
No,
that movie revived him.
He had only done like one other movie, I think, after all that shit hit the fan with him.
Yeah, this is the movie that actually brought him back, because he was doing things with like Val Kilmer, that Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yeah,
at that level, but not the same.
Yeah, this definitely. But once you see a good performance from him again, and you can do the whole,
he was made for that. He was made for Tony Stark. He was made for that role.
Yes,
except for now. Now he's whiny. Now he whines like a bitch all the time. They made Tony Stark a whiny bitch.
Yeah, well, because he's in love with fucking cunt face over there.
Well, what are you thinking about, Walt?
Cunt face.
Not a fan of Apple, huh?
Pepper Potts, maybe.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. Is Pepper Potts the cunt face, or is it Gwyneth? That's the.
Yeah, I don't like Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, you don't like Gwyneth? Okay, but Pepper Potts is okay as long as it was.
I'm sorry if I offend anybody that does. She's not my cup of tea.
Tell us how you really feel.
Cunt face.
No, whoa. Whew. So
The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton, right? It got a 67 critic rating and a 70 fan rating. So that's like a 78.5. I think it was better than that. I actually like
a little better than that. I enjoyed the movie, but it wasn't a great movie.
I would say it's probably like a 75 at the most.
Yeah.
Most, right? Now Iron Man 2 got a 73 critics rating and a 71 fan rating, so a 72 rating.
It's about right.
A big drop off for the second one.
To me, that's a big ride. I thought that was the worst movie they made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thor got a 77 critics and a 76 fan rating, so that's like a 76.5. That's probably about right.
Yeah. It was enough. There was enough faith in Thor that there was the bounce back. I think maybe it could have been a little higher, but because everybody was so down on, it's like one comic book movie made it and it was good, Robert Downey Jr., but look what happened to the second one. Now they're making another one.
Yeah. But I also think Thor probably, in comparison, was helped by that too, because they lowered the expectations a little bit, and then it was because first Avenger, the first Captain America movie, right? I didn't like it. I hated it when I first saw it. I thought it was so campy and cheesy. I hated it. They got an 80 critics rating and a 74 fan rating. That's a 77 rating. I thought the fans are right about that. I think that's more of like a 74 movie.
The fans are definitely right about that one.
Yeah. But still, if you gave it a 77, because Red Skull looked great. The Red Skull looked awesome in that movie, and it was cool to see Captain America jumping around. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of that. Avengers 1 got a 92 critics and 91 fans, so 91 and a half. About the same as Iron Man.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, to me, those are top 5 for me. Those two. Iron Man 3 got an 80 and a 78 for a 79 overall.
Seems about right.
Probably. That's probably about right.
Yeah.
It was decent, better than the second, not as good as the first.
Yep. Better than exactly. Better than the second, not as good as the first. Thor Dark World, 67 critics, 76 fans for 71 and a half. I think that's probably 71 and a half is probably about right for Thor 2.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were, especially with Avengers already on the map, they were excited about the MCU and they just wanted to gobble everything up. So fan rating might have been a little higher. Critics seemed a little low, but
yeah, I think 71 is about right though, because I tried to watch that the other day and I fell asleep.
Was that the first one with Padme?
It's the second one. It's the second one. Last one. Right. Yeah. Then Captain America: Winter Soldier, 90 critics, 92 fans for 91 rating. That's one of my favorite movies.
That was excellent.
Yeah. So, like the fan ratings, the top 3: 92 Iron Man, 91 and a half Avengers, 91 Captain America. I think it's actually in that order. Probably. Only because Iron Man was the first one, but I think it's actually in that order.
Yeah.
Then Guardians 1, 91 critics, 92 fans for 91 and a half.
Yeah.
I'm right there, man. Guardians 1, top 5.
Dude, Guardians of the Galaxy was a fun movie too.
Yeah,
it was good, but it was just a fucking good, feel good, like the action, like the soundtrack and the vibe of the team. First of all, I dig, right? The action was good, right? I thought Chris Pratt is really good. I liked all that fucking Batista as a wrestling fan. It was kind of like, cool, Batista, But I was honestly a little surprised, but pleasantly so, that he's as good an actor at this role, because in wrestling, his character sometimes was, but that's also live TV and whatever. So maybe, let him practice it a few times. He's obviously fucking great.
Yeah, he's really good. He's really good. So, Avengers Ultron, Age of Ultron got a 75 critics and an 83 fans for a 79 rating. I thought it was better than a 79. Not much better, but better.
Yeah. I think critics are a little too low because they're now being overly critical of all these movies. And it was not a great movie either.
No, it wasn't great. It was.
And I think the fans were a little high because, again, MCU.
It was a bit of a letdown for an Avengers movie. I thought Avengers 1 was so good, it was a bit of a letdown because you were expecting so much more, but it was still pretty cool. It was still better than 79.
I think one of the reasons for that too is I think they relied a little bit too heavy on the whole like Ultron and the robots and the battle aspects. Yeah. Like there wasn't a ton to the movie that was like, cool and interesting. It was kind of like everything kind of plotted along, and then robots and destruction.
Although, like Ant-Man got an 82 critics and 86 fans, so that is an 84 overall rating.
I haven't seen it yet. From what I've heard, that sounds about
Ant-Man. The first, I think it's a little high.
Okay.
Avengers Ultron was better than Ant-Man.
Okay. Again, like I said, I haven't seen it, so I can't.
All right. So some of these, did you see Civil War?
No, I have not, but I've heard very good
things. Okay. At this point, I mean, we've gone over these things a lot anyway. But basically, Avengers Infinity War, have you seen that one?
Yes.
Okay. They only gave that an 88 overall rating, but the same as Black Panther. And only because the critics gave Black Panther a 97 rating, and they only gave Avengers Infinity War an 85 rating.
What was the fan one on that one? The Avengers?
On Infinity War, 91.
Yeah.
It's the critics rated it too low.
I agree.
And you can't.
And I think the fans were right on with this one, not too high. It was a really good movie.
To give Black Panther a 97 and you give Infinity War an 85 is kind of a joke.
No, it's too big of a disparity there.
Right. So
and unfortunately, it's like stuff like that that's why everybody feels like there's this, the transparent, just fucking agendas, and that's what turns people off.
And that's the thing that don't get rid of that yet. And that's the thing that makes me afraid of what they're gonna do next, because like Doctor Strange was awesome. I don't know if you saw Doctor Strange. I thought that was
Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange actually was one of my low key favorite characters back in the day. I didn't have a lot of his comics, but I liked him a lot.
He was the same thing with Black Panther for me though. Black Panther was a guy that I liked a lot when I was a kid, but
he looked cool.
He's not in a whole lot.
No, unless you followed specifically the Black Panther, comic and had all those. No,
anybody who told you did is
crossover stuff.
Anybody who told you did is a liar. They're not telling you the truth. They're not being honest with you. Yeah, that was my favorite comic. That's
if someone was like a big collector, I could see them getting like the first couple issues. Like I did that with a few comics. Like something number 1 came out and I liked the cover and it wasn't like expensive. I was like, yeah, shit. Well, why not? Maybe this becomes huge and I have issue number 1. Never happened.
What I do like is that when they are not getting political at the movies, they're pretty close. When you look at the fans, I mean, always lean towards the fans anyway. But except for the Black Panther, though, it wasn't a 79. That's fan backlash for the obvious.
Agreed. Yeah.
And this one is going to suffer. The Captain Marvel is going to suffer the same thing. Only the critics don't like it as much, so it could very well get hammered. I'm kind of afraid of that.
Yeah.
And I'm also afraid that their nonsense is going to ruin Infinity War, ruin Endgame. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's more my concern of anything. Because you know what? If Captain Marvel flops and she's not the star of the next MCU, universe, Avengers, if you will,
they may be dodging a bullet there. It could be a correction,
Yeah, but again, if it fucks up Infinity War 2.
Then they're done.
That's when you worry about the franchise and its own stability. Because when your biggest player of the franchise goes and you fuck that up,
yeah, especially since then, because Venom wasn't that good. The critics hated it. The critics hated it, and the fans gave it a good rating. Fans gave it an 83 rating, but it wasn't an 83 rating. It was like a 70, 75. It was up there with Thor, and it wasn't that great.
Okay.
But if you go and ruin Infinity War, right, that means you ruined your entire last year. Your last 4 movies were shit. Because the part 1 is completely dependent on part 2. It's one of those things like Kill Bill, right? Kill Bill Volume 1 was awesome. I love that movie. But Kill Bill Volume 2 sucked. And it ruined Volume 1 for me. I can't watch either one.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. For me, I think I could still appreciate 1 as a standalone movie and not let it deter. But it's not like these are 2 movies that are mutually exclusive. They're
the same story.
They're the same exact movie, just stretched out over 2. It's
the Lord of the Rings. It's any of that. It's the same story.
Like if they went out there and botched fucking Return of the King, like we're not talking about Lord of the Rings in the same concept, the same stratosphere as like Star Wars and Indiana Jones when we talk about best franchises.
Yeah, that's another one that pissed me off for the same kind of reason, though. Although they didn't get political with it. The Hobbit, they should have made a 1 standalone movie, and they tried to milk it for the money, and they tried to turn it into 3 movies, and it was shit. They were all garbage. And The Hobbit's the best book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's by far the best one. It's definitely the best book.
It was the one I was in. It's the one I owned. I read it over and over again. Yeah.
So but that's not as egregious though, because you still are going to remember the Lord of the Rings, and you're not really going to care about the Hobbit. But this,
the awful cartoon, fucking Lord of the Rings. What was it? Hammer and Bass, or what the fuck was that?
I'm actually surprised I don't own that.
I don't.
At one point, Tolkien. See, for me as a writer, Tolkien is the biggest influence that I have on my writing. Vonnegut's my favorite writer. I was a huge Edgar Allan Poe fan and a huge Nathaniel Hawthorne fan. I fucking love Hawthorne. Actually, I thought Hawthorne probably tells the type of story that I like the most. It's like Poe, but not as dark and not as difficult. Like Poe really uses big words, man. He liked to use them. Walt, what are you thinking about, Walt?
No, I'm just taking it all in. Which Hawthorne do you like the best? Is it like Scarlet Letter or what?
No, not his novels, his short stories.
He has stories. Okay.
He has the Old Great Champion is a great story. It's about the redcoats are taking over, are like abusing citizens in this town, right?
Mm-hmm.
And except they have a protector of the people, like of the families or whatever, was a knight from England.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes in as a ghost. A knight comes in as a ghost and just hacking up redcoats. Fucking great story. Then there's another one called Young Goodman Brown. Oh man. Oh, Young Goodman Brown is a fucking fantastic story about a priest. He's a Puritan preacher, and he has to go on a journey that everyone in his family goes on through this woods, right? And Satan is there trying to tempt him the entire way, right? And then so he finds out on his travels that his father and his grandfather gave in to Satan, right?
Sorry.
And when he gets towards the end of this trail, he finds that his wife, who he just married, who he's in love with, he finds that his wife takes the plunge and she goes in with Satan. And I think she fucks him. I'm not sure she fucks Satan or not. Shit,
Oh, he fucked her.
So then he goes back to the town the next day, and everyone in the town acts like nothing happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Only he never forgets, and because he's being a man of God, right?
Right.
He fucking dies a bitter old man.
Oh man.
He alienates himself from everybody. Yeah, it's awesome. It's a great story. No, that's some good stuff.
Sounds like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of yeah. Well, I mean, it's 100 years before the Twilight Zone, 150 years before the Twilight Zone, whatever it is. But yeah,
it's got that same vibe to it.
Yeah. And he also doesn't write in language that's as difficult to read as Poe. Poe writes in language that they basically don't use those words anymore. And not that it's a lot easier for a 10-year-old to read Hawthorne. But it's good stuff. But Tolkien, though, the way that he writes, I owned everything he wrote at one point, and he's like, to me, he paints with his words. There's nobody that is as descriptive as a writer as Tolkien. No one. And man, great.
And the craziest thing to me is a lot of, especially the lore and the concept, he created while he was fucking a soldier in the middle of the war, right?
It's actually the last book that he came out with was called The Barian and Luthien or something like that. I have it in my office. Mm-hmm. It is a compilation of, he had these two original characters that were based on him and his wife, and this book, which is the last one that came out, it's his son actually released it, where he releases all the different variations of these characters as they go through time. So literally, I mean, he wanted to create a mythology for England the same way the Greeks and the Norse and the Romans have, and so he wanted to do that, and he wanted to. A lot of it he came up with while he was in the war. But it was still really, the whole thing was all developed around these two characters, which were him and his wife. And so it's kind of really amazing. He built this whole world out of these two characters, love for each other. Mm-hmm. It's really crazy shit. I haven't finished that book. That's something I actually got to get back into, but I'm in school. I don't have time for it right now. Anyway, it's 11:15.
Cool.
Any last words?
Don't get political in your movies or your shows for said movies.
It's a good point.
Movie and then do your thing.
Then have at it, right? Make it real. But yeah, don't put your politics above the story and above the fans.
Yeah.
Don't alienate your audience.
Don't bite the hand that feeds.
Walt, you're quiet tonight.
Just taking it all in, man.
Well, just don't take it in too hard. Anyway, buy my books on Amazon, and check us out on YouTube and SoundCloud, Mad TMC, The Garage, and have a good night, folks.